Throughout this series, I've argued that optimization isn't a choice, that it's an emergent property of intelligence, that it accelerates through capitalism and power, and that it eventually crosses a threshold where benefits reduce and hidden costs begin to dominate. But there's something else we need to explore. Because when you look around, you'll see that we're not living in a nightmare, but then we're also not living in a utopia. Most things work efficiently, most systems function effectively, and most people are relatively safe, fed and connected. And yet, a low-level dissatisfaction is felt by many. Not a dramatic misery and not societal collapse, just a persistent sense of discontentment. So to help clarify the situation, I want to introduce to you two definitions. Optimisery, the impact of optimization on the human experience, and Mistopia, a world structured around efficiency rather than contentment. First off, I want to be really clear about something. Optimisery isn't suffering. Many people around the world experience real and harrowing problems, risks to their well-being and lives we all need to do something to try to fix. In many ways, this video is about what happens at the other end of the scale, when we escape suffering and keep going. Optimisery is what happens within a world of ever-increasing comfort, a kind of efficiency-induced emptiness. A condition where life becomes smoother, faster, and more convenient while steadily depleting texture from our existence. Instead of being exhausted because things are hard, we're exhausted as a result of excess and because nothing ever stops. We're not unhappy because we lack comfort. It's the polar opposite. We become unhappy because comfort has removed the need for effort. It's a place where we feel disconnected, even though most of us are far from being isolated. A disconnection that emerges in a hyper-connected world where everything is mediated. The truth is that optimized systems remove friction brilliantly. Too brilliantly. So much so that we've been able to remove almost all effort from many areas of life. Vehicles take us where we need to go. The internet delivers entertainment on demand. Food can be delivered, and any products we need can be requested through the glass of our smartphones. And because of that, we assume that the human experience has improved, which is confusing because a lot of people now feel less contented overall. But that's because we've mistakenly cast friction and effort as the villains in our story, when they can be heroes whose role it is to provide meaning and interest to the plot lines of our lives. Effort gives weight and importance to outcomes. Delay gives space for reflection and builds anticipation, and difficulty makes achievement possible. Optimisery is what we experience when these things are removed from our lives. It's the state of mind we reach when we're held back from doing the very things we evolved to do, when the systems of comfort prevent us from being fully human. So I think that optimisery is the driving force behind the world we now live in, a world that over-supports us by removing the need to tackle life's challenges, where normal human experiences like waiting, striving, problem-solving, and accomplishing are being steadily deleted. That world is a Mistopia, an age, place, and state defined by an inability to experience life to the full. Dystopia suggests oppression, violence, and collapse, and while these things exist, fortunately, they don't dominate globally. Utopia suggests harmony, fulfillment, and peace. These things exist too, but they aren't the norm, and in many ways are becoming harder to find. Humans have always existed in something softer and fuzzier that includes elements of both. And right now we live in a world in which almost everything works, which is good, but where opportunities for meaningful satisfaction are rarer than they've ever been, which is bad. A world that's been engineered for convenience and efficiency rather than alignment and contentment. Not a landscape of abject misery for most, but a place with more opportunities to feel miserable. Not somewhere defined by true suffering, but with aspects of life that can often feel insufferable. A low-grade wrongness that's hard to articulate, and because of that, easy to dismiss. Mistopia doesn't lead to a revolt. Revolts happen when we say enough is enough and push back en masse. Instead, Mistopia leads to coping. Through distraction, through optimization of the self, and by numbing the mind. By layering wellness routines and performative social media on top of the structural misalignment we experience. By engaging in digital detoxes, gaining validation online and mirroring the behavior of influencers. By curating our persona, shopping on Amazon and binging Netflix, food, pharmaceuticals and alcohol. The mechanisms we choose depend a lot on which generation we're from and where we live. But most people will identify with doing one or more of those things on a day-to-day basis. I know I do. These are coping mechanisms we use to get by in the reality we've built. A reality of systems that prevent us from living naturally. But the important thing to realise is that a Mistopia isn't extreme. It's tolerable. And because we can tolerate it, it persists. At this point, it's tempting to look for people to blame. Companies like Google, Apple and Meta, figureheads like Elon Musk, Mark Zuckerberg or Sam Altman. All of these companies and people rely on optimization as a core driver in what they do. Sometimes we even blame technology itself. After all, removing the network of tech we exist in would return us to a state more aligned with our biology. But all of that misses the point. Optimization didn't hijack humanity. Humanity is an optimization machine. And so in my mind, ending up in a world structured around efficiency was always inevitable. We built systems that do exactly what they were designed to do. Remove effort, increase productivity, and give us what we want. The problem isn't that we took a wrong turn, succumbed to acts of intentional malice, or even sleepwalked into a preventable future. The problem is that there's a mismatch between our capabilities as a civilization and our needs as individual biological creatures. Our instincts drive us to create optimized systems that operate on metrics, speed, and scale. But our evolutionary makeup requires each of us to have meaning, rhythm, and context. So when those worlds collide, something has to give. And because civilization acts as a powerful superorganism operating at scale, it's the individual human that becomes the casualty, like cells withering away as a natural part of an animal's life cycle. This is why telling people to simply log off, slow down, or choose better feels half-baked. It is half-baked, and it certainly isn't a solution. The system will keep pushing us forcefully in the opposite direction. It wants us to fall in line. So what's required is something more comprehensive, an individual, holistic approach that meets the challenges of living in a highly optimized world. And while finding out what works for you is difficult to achieve, that difficulty is actually a reason to do it, because preparing for a future that will be increasingly optimized and opposed to our needs as individuals becomes a source of meaning in and of itself. So where does that leave us? If we're living inside Optimisery, if Mistopia is stable enough to persist, and if optimization isn't going to stop, it can feel like we can't do anything to change how optimization impacts us. But we can, just not in the ways people tend to gravitate towards. Agency doesn't live at the system level anymore. Optimization has become too expansive, too embedded, too hardwired. While contributing to discussions and making our feelings known is really useful in helping to shape policy and outcomes, it won't solve the problem of optimization. Instead, meaningful agency lives at the boundary, in what you as an individual allow optimization to touch, in where you accept friction deliberately, in where you choose depth over speed, and where you resist convenience in favor of meaning. And to be clear, this isn't about rejecting technology. Far from it. We should embrace technology where appropriate to support the things we want to do, to access information, to expand our thinking, to connect, and to enhance enjoyment and contentment. But I do think we should refuse to let efficiency define everything, by choosing to learn slowly where it counts, by deciding to build things that take time, and by valuing effort even where shortcuts exist. These aren't pointless gestures or weak attempts to go back to the good old days. They're essential acts of human preservation. Because in a world that can't stop optimizing itself, the most radical thing we can do as individuals is to choose what shouldn't be optimized. And that, I think, is where the future of human agency really lives. The final thing I want to say about reducing optimization in your life is this. It isn't easy. I struggle with achieving a balance every day because we live in a world that wants us to lean into efficiency. But even just understanding the impact it's having on you is important. And once you do, you'll want to start leaning away from it, which can be the start of meaningful change. Okay, so that concludes my Optimisation Trap 4-part series. I really hope it's been of use to you, shedding light on the systems we live in and highlighting the pressures we face. If you haven't seen the other installments in this series, then you really should. And you should watch the other videos I have on my channel as well about how tech impacts the human experience. As always, thanks so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you again in the future. This video was based on my writing over at layeredfuture.com. If you'd like to explore the full article or browse through other topics, you'll find it all there.